Welcome back to the Beyond the Bestseller podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Schuknecht, and today's guest is Sheree Bergeron, author of Mission Motherhood. Welcome, Sheree.
Thank you so much. I'm really thrilled to be here.
Great. Well, I'm excited to talk about your book. So I want to start out by having you tell us about Mission Motherhood and why you wrote this book.
Well, I wrote it because I had a 10-year struggle with infertility. And I have to think I'm not the only one who goes through these things. But one of the struggles for me was I was really successful in my career, but somehow I felt helpless to build the family that I wanted. And when I got to the age of 40, sitting desperate in a fertility clinic's office, I learned some hard truths about reproductive timelines and things like that. And I just felt like other women need to know this information. So this is really kind of a teaching memoir of my experience, very raw and real, but also some things I would tell my younger self.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and so many women go through fertility issues, or, I had a miscarriage, right? And a friend of mine just had a miscarriage. And I remember when I dealt with that, I was fortunate. It's only been one experience like that. So, it sounds like you had a long time of dealing with that, and so not to take away from that, but I want to talk a little bit more about kind of what that 10-year journey looked like for you. But I know that the thing that helped me the most was when I heard from other women saying, I experienced this as well, because my mom hadn't, my sister hadn't, and so I felt very alone in that. But all the people that reached out to me, I was like, oh, like this is very common, right? Like
It is,
so
and so
much
why
more
is it that
than.
we don't talk about it? I mean, actually the estimates are that between 1 in 4 and 1 in 5 pregnancies end in miscarriage, which is a mind-blowing statistic. Why don't we talk about it anymore? And don't get me started on even the term miscarriage, which seems to say that the woman didn't carry it properly or something like that. So I'll get off my soapbox on that. But yeah, these things are far more common than we realize. And I think one of the things we need to do is speak out about it a lot more. So that was really one of the driving forces behind the book.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me about that 10-year journey. Did you experience like miscarriages, or was it a lack of being able to get pregnant? Like what was that fertility journey for you?
Well, first, I started with not being able to get pregnant in my late 30s, 36, 37, 38, 39. And then I started a process of IVF and fertility treatments.
Mm, yep.
And that process is just a absolute roller coaster ride. And so, you measure your life in 30-day increments, and you start the month with this incredible hope. And then a few weeks later, you're in the dumps, you're depressed, and all of your dreams are dashed, and then you start again. I mean, rinse and repeat. And so I actually had pregnancies and I had a late stage medical termination, which was really difficult. And I had a child who lived to be only 19 days. And so, these are just devastating experiences that women go through. And so I wanted to take those learnings. There were some really key things I could have done differently that I was very passionate to let other people know.
Yeah, yeah. Now, how did your 10-year journey end? Can you share that?
Yes, it has a happy ending, which is always wonderful, not without a lot of struggle and turmoil. But my children are 13. I have a 13-year-old daughter and I have a 10-year-old son, and they are both healthy and thriving. And so, one of the big things around the book, even though it goes into these very dark and personal places, is to say there's hope. And a lot of times I think women find themselves trapped in outdated narratives about what family should look like, what motherhood should look like. And there's a tremendous amount of self-criticism and shame and all these things. And so this book is really trying to break a lot of those stigmas and be empowering to women to say, you know what? Motherhood, there are many paths to motherhood, and you just have to figure out the one that's right for you. And there are resources that you can get to help you plan that path.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, you talked about why you wrote this book, right? Which was to comfort, help women going through things like you experienced, and to know that they aren't alone, to know that, you're educating them on things that might be helpful to them in that process. What so that was kind of your mission, right? Like, I want to do this, but like, what got you to actually say, I need to write this book? Like, what was
Well, I
that
know
moment for
that
you?
the actual moment, and I don't know how deep you want to go into it, but I also was involved in a very strange custody battle where I used an anonymous sperm donor while I was legally separated, and I ended up in a custody battle with my estranged husband of, at that time, 7 years, who tried to become the legal father of my son. And it was mind blowing because he wasn't living with them. He wasn't the biological father. He had played no role in the IVF process to create him. All of these things, and yet this was happening. And so it was one of those moments like, why? God, why is this happening? And then you kind of roll the tape back and you think, I mean, I had all the pain of the infertility treatments. I had not just one loss, but multiple losses. My daughter was in the NICU for 40 days. And then this child was kind of my normal. And then this is happening to me. And it was one of those moments of like total surrender, to be like, why is this happening? And the message I got back in that moment of quiet surrender was, so that you can help other women become mothers.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that was a real turning point for me, because it was like all of this hard won wisdom needs to be used to benefit other women and help them have an easier path. And so that gave me my mission. And so that was when I decided I had to write the book.
Nice, nice. So you sat down to write the book, and tell me about kind of the process that you took to, like, how did you actually, I don't know, like, approach the writing process, and like get the stories out, and like the educational piece in that you wanted to have to include in the book.
Yeah. Well, the content of the book kind of poured out of me. I don't know if other people have that. I was an English minor. I'm comfortable writing. I was in a marketing career, so I knew about writing. And so the content of the book just poured out. But then as I looked at it, I thought, this is not good enough. What I wanted the book to be was a truly immersive experience, almost like a conversation between two girlfriends talking about the hard realities of infertility. And so I was like, this doesn't get me there. So I engaged a company to help me. I engaged a ghostwriter to really dig in with me. And what makes a book gripping is the detail and the descriptive nature of things. And so that was really the collaboration that I needed to get the book from, what I think was good to great. And so that was definitely an investment that I decided to make, but I'm really glad that I did, because I knew that this was going to be likely the only book I'd ever write. We'll see. I have a few other ideas, but it was so important that I get it right for all of those other women. And so, I'm glad I took that path.
Yeah, yeah. How did you find a ghostwriter to help with the project? I'm curious.
Well, it turns out that it's a company. I'm based in Austin, Texas, and it's a company called Scribe Media that's out of Austin.
Hmm.
And so they kind of shepherd you through the whole process. Now, I mean, I had a lot of content, as we said, and we used that as a basis, but I was able to interview a number of ghostwriters. I ultimately worked with one who was actually a creative writing professor, and so very highly qualified. Otherwise, I don't think I would have known how to find the right ghostwriter.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's great. That's great that you had somebody to walk you through that process. Um, did they also help you with the publishing part of it?
Yes, and of
Okay.
course it was a self-published book.
Hmm.
So yes, and I just decided there are so many areas. Well, I knew this topic. I didn't know much about publishing a book. And
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
really think it's so important to have someone guiding you along that process. And I know that there are, other people who do this, but this is all they do. And so for me, I was entrusting this was my last baby I would have, entrusting that baby to some real professionals, some
Yeah.
experts.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so the book has been out. Oh, I guess I'm not seeing the published date. So how long has your book been out?
May of this year. So it
Okay.
just came out. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. By the time this episode comes out, it'll be a little bit later. But yeah, so you had it out for about 6 months or so. So have you heard from people who have read your book and have, um, like, what kind of feedback or testimonials have you gotten from people who have come across a copy of it?
I didn't mean it to quite be this way, but some people say it's a thriller. And I was like, well, yeah, that's just kind of my life. I've had people say that they pick it up and they really can't put it down. And I think it's really a book about resilience and perseverance. So even for people who aren't going on a fertility journey, I think there are things to understand about when you know that this is your life's direction, the links that you will go to pursue it. So I think those were some of the biggest comments, that it was very gripping, very real, that it increased people's understanding about what the fertility process is like and what infertility feels like for women. Then through my work, I have a nonprofit called Sheree's Choice, which is really intended to activate all of the lessons that I learned. And so I guide women through workshops, through counseling, through coaching, and through speaking to really plan their path to motherhood much more intentionally than I did. And I'll tell you that that's really where the power comes into it, because I want to change the course for other women on this path. And I think what it really means is we have to plan our path to motherhood similar to the way we plan our careers. It involves taking ownership, being proactive, and having, understanding our values and making a plan.
Yeah. So tell more about your nonprofit. So the nonprofit, this book is kind of a not a promotion of your nonprofit, but it's a part of your overall mission. So the nonprofit is also like helping women. Is that like your full-time thing, or is that something
It
you do on the
is.
side?
Yes, it
Okay.
is. And so the book was about my story. The nonprofit is about helping other women write their stories. And
Sure.
so you can just see it's an extension of, if you want to understand what it was like for me, that's where the book comes in and what some of the takeaways were of things I would do differently. If you want to walk through your own process of exploration, then that's where Sheree's Choice comes in. And because it really involves, what are my values? What are my priorities? What are my non-negotiables? And when you really get clear about all of those things, then you can start to take some proactive steps like fertility assessments, egg freezing, IVF, foster care, adoption, and you name it. There's all different kinds of paths, and it's really unique to every single woman. And so Sheree's Choice is just meant to walk alongside those women and help them make those decisions.
Nice. How long have you had that nonprofit?
Well, I started it back when I had the court case. So it's been around for quite some time, but I would really say that we have picked up steam in the last year leading up to the book, because we've acquired some funding and are able to really offer more of these programs. So, I would say that it is coming on strong now.
That's great. That's great. And what about the book marketing process then? So we talked a little bit about your writing journey, your publishing, and the help that you had through that. How did you approach the book launch and just the marketing and getting the word out about the book?
Well, I think that's probably one of the hardest things, because we think about a launch as being the ta-da moment. But the fact is, it's just the beginning of a very long process. And so for me, I had spent my career in the software industry, which was a predominantly male dominated, a lot of my contacts were old white men. And it was like, well, that's probably not my demographic. And so for me, this has really been a process of creating a completely new network of people that I'm speaking with. And so I would say, yes, we had a book launch. Yes, I worked with some experts through Scribe and some other professionals like rising authors who help can help authors market their book. But I would say that it really was an entirely new branding process for me, and one that happens brick by brick. It's not just a ta-da moment, it's actually a layering over time.
Yeah. So, what is your biggest piece of advice for somebody who is going through a fertility challenge at any stage?
Well, I would say get some support, because it is a very isolating process for women, and there are so many tapes running in our head that are all very critical, or at least it was for me. And so I think it really is comforting to know that you aren't alone, and then really getting information. Because, for example, I ended up using an egg donor because I was 40 and the egg quality of my own eggs wasn't good. Well, I had never heard of egg donors before. And I found out that if I used the eggs of a 25-year-old woman, then my odds of having a healthy baby were about the same as hers. Well, that was mind blowing to me. And if I hadn't started to seek out that information, I would never know. That was my pathway to motherhood. And you just don't know what you don't know. That is the problem. And so I think digging in with resources, Sheree's Choice has a lot of resources. Also, there are fertility coaches and things like that can walk alongside you. I think that's one of the biggest things to know, that you please don't do it alone. But then the other thing I want to say is there is hope. I mean, my journey took 10 years. And if you feel that you are drawn to be a mother and that's part of your purpose, you can make it happen. And I just want to comfort women who are struggling with it and let them know there is hope.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, Sheree, we will include a link to your book in the show notes, and also your nonprofit. We can include the URL for that as well. What are the other ways that listeners can learn more about you and your message online and connect with you?
I'm on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, so I can provide all those links to you. I'm not very hard to find. And ShereeBergeron.com, just my name.com, is my author website, and then Sheree's Choice is also there. And so please, you're welcome to message me. This is my personal passion, and helping women. I say jokingly, I measure my success in babies. So, that is really what gets me up in the morning. So I hope that there are some women I can help.
That's great. Well, thank you for coming on and sharing your journey, both your journey to becoming a mother and your journey to getting your book published and out there. And yeah, we will share those links in the show notes. And thanks for coming on, Sheree.
Thank you, Kelly.
All right.
Looking for a community of women writers to support and inspire you on your journey? Join the Author Power Circle. Connect weekly with fellow authors, stay accountable, and move your book forward in an encouraging community. Learn more at kellyschuknecht.com.